Hey out there, and welcome to today's Search Engine Journal webinar. Hope you're having a great day, and we're thrilled to have you here with us. Today, I am joined by Vishal Maru and Shabik Ray of iQuanti, along with Josh Wolf of Telium. Today, this gang is going to be talking to you about your marketing tech stack and how the right tools can help you automate tasks and gain deeper insights for better strategy and planning, because that's what it's all about, right? So my name's Heather. I'm going to be your moderator today. Please use hashtag SEJwebinars to share any cool tidbits from today's learnings on social. And typically we would meet our guests first, but I'm going to do some quick housekeeping and then I'm going to turn it over to them because they've got a lot of really good stuff for you all today. So for our attendees, if you experience any technical difficulties, please use the chat box to let us know. There's separate tabs for the questions in the chat, so take a second to get familiar with those up in the top right of your screen. You can give an upvote to any questions if you see something you like and like to make sure that we ask, so give it a little upvote. And we will answer as many of those questions as we can after the presentation. There is also closed captioning. It's the little CC in the top right corner, so you can click that. And we will do our absolute best to link to any resources or tools in the chat. But watch for the email that we're going to send later this afternoon, because those resources will be included in your recap email. And then after the webinar, we ask if you can stick around for a short survey. It takes like 30 seconds. And this information just really helps us gauge how the webinar went and how we can make them more useful for you in the future. And lastly, it's the question that we get asked the most. You will absolutely receive today's recording and slides in your inbox, so watch for that. And like I said, I'm going to let these gentlemen introduce themselves. I'm going to bounce out of here. I'll be back for the Q&A. Guys, it's all yours.
Thanks, Heather. Hi, everyone. I'm Vishal. I am a VP of Digital Solutions at iQuanti, and I am responsible for cross-channel strategy and solutions for clients. And I have a focus in the financial services vertical. I was with Disco Financial, leading acquisition strategies over there for 5 years before iQuanti. Passing on to Shabik.
Hi everyone, I am Shabik. I am a Senior Director of Analytics at iQuanti, focusing primarily on measurement and data tracking. Previous to joining iQuanti, I've spent considerable amount of time with Oracle and Tableau. Passing on to Josh.
You're on mute, Josh.
Sorry about that. This is Josh. I currently am Director of Solutions Consulting for the partner team at Telium, building out technical go-to-market strategies. Previously, I've worked at Thomson Reuters and originally back in the day at DoubleClick, so lots of experience in ad tech and MarTech, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today. And now I will pass it back to Vishal.
Thanks. So this is the agenda for today. So we'll talk about how the digital marketing landscape is evolving. Then we'll discuss the MarTech framework that we use for evaluating and building MarTech stack. The third point is, the key focus. We dive deep into the different recommendations that we have for 2023. We have done an assessment of the financial services industry's MarTech stack. So we'll have some insights that we'll discuss from that. And then finally, what this all means, how you can take all of these insights and apply to your business, and how do you get started. Right? So let's start with the digital marketing landscape. In the past few years, we've seen a lot of big changes, which have led to significant disruption of the industry. There's a lot of privacy regulations which are coming into effect, starting with GDPR, CCPA, and they keep coming. Right? The third-party cookie deprecation, this has been a hot topic for a couple of years now. The deadline keeps getting pushed out from the latest that we know. The deadline has been pushed from end of 2023 to mid 2024, as Google is still trying to figure out alternate solutions to this. The impact is going to be big. Out of the top 1,000 websites, 85% of them have cookies set by third parties. And it is estimated that publishers will face a loss of $10 billion once this happens. So it's pretty big. The other one, which happened recently, was Apple's App Tracking Transparency (ATT) update, and this has had a big impact for some players, especially for Facebook. Right, so Facebook is estimated to lose around $10 billion in ad revenues because of this update. Um, then GA4. So GA4 has been a game changer, right? So it was launched in October 2020, and it's a significant upgrade to the previous Google Analytics version, both from a front end as well as back end perspective. It uses a event-driven data model, which is a new way of tracking in analytics, and everyone will be required to transition to GA4. So people who are using the free version are required to transition in 2023, and people who are using the paid version will be given an additional year. They have time to transition by 2024. And also, we've seen Google introducing more and more automation in its stack, right? So if you look at Google Ads, we've seen smart bidding come into play, responsive ads come into play, OptiScore come into play, and most recently we have Performance Max. So Performance Max actually gives a view into what the future will be with Google. It's trying to automate several different aspects of campaign management, right? And these sort of automations are going to continue. And finally, AI and ML has been becoming more and more mainstream in marketing. So there's a lot of use of AI ML in different aspects, from predictive targeting to measurement solutions and even creative and content development, right? So with all of these different changes that are happening, as marketers, you need to look at your marketing technology stack and figure out what changes that you need to make to ensure that you're staying relevant and you maximizing the potential of your marketing efforts by enhancing your stack. So we look at a framework internally to evaluate, a MarTech stack, right? So there's four different categories. We have data management over here, activation, experience, and analytics, right? So you really lay a strong foundation with data management. And in here, there would be platforms which help you manage your first-party data, which help you create a connected, infrastructure, and help you manage consent, right? Then with this, strong data foundation, you figure out your activation and experience strategy. On the activation side, you have the right sort of tools and platforms which help drive and reach the different audiences, which help you with the creative and content development and optimization. On the experience side, provide you with good insights on your experience, help you manage your experience, personalize the experience, and on the analytics and insight side, provide you good insights on different channels, web analytics, as well as attribution. Uh, and when we assess this for our clients, we typically see and categorize clients into three levels of maturity. Either they could be novice, emerging, or proficient, right? So what more mature, proficient MarTech stack looks like, and what are some of the characteristics, right? So from a data management perspective, it will give you a single view of your customers across several different data points, right? It will help you utilize the audience segments that you have created across all different channels. When it comes to measurement, you are tracking granular level data and end-to-end data, and there is a complete feedback loop in place and even effective consent management. When it comes to activation, it means that you have a full funnel channel utilization infrastructure, right? You have the right sort of data partnerships to target the right sort of audiences. And the partnerships are going to be relevant even in the cookieless future. There's a lot of different solutions that are coming up, and we want to make sure that you are testing into a lot of these different solutions to make sure that they're working for you. And then there's different solutions which help you automate, creative and content development and optimize these things better. On the experience side, trying to automate as much of experience management as possible, using different sort of experience analytics solutions which provide you with deeper insights into user experience, customer experience, and having a seamless personalization platform. And finally, on the analytics side, you're gaining deeper insights into your channel performance and attribution, and also really getting deeper understanding of your customer behavior, your customer intent, of the users that are coming to your website. Okay? So this is the framework that we'll use to set up the conversation for today as well. Um, for the next section, I'll pass it on to Shobik and Josh, who will talk through some of the key recommendations that we have in terms of the MarTech stack for 2023.
Thanks, Vishal. This is a view of what we at Telium call the customer data supply chain, right? And the platform that we provide is sort of this behind-the-scenes framework to collect, standardize, enrich, and distribute customer data. And it really can support a lot of the initiatives that Vishal was mentioning previously, such as adaptation to the loss of third-party cookies, changes in privacy regulations, maybe just sort of reassessing your MarTech stack in general, or something more specific like migrating to GA4. And this diagram right here, it moves from the left to the right. And what we offer is a series of integrations to collect customer data from any source. So you might know Telium as sort of being an expert on website and app data. And yes, we can absolutely collect digital data, but I don't want you to limit that, right? I want you to also consider sources such as maybe models from your data lake or point of sale systems or CRM systems, because we want to really understand all aspects of your customer. And we want to be able to collect that data. And then in the next stage where we talk about standardizing, it's also very important because a lot of the times in the enterprise, this data is inconsistent. It's coming from different sources. I've talked to large businesses that might have 10 or 15 different CRM systems alone, which is, it's crazy to think, but that's the reality that we deal with. So standardizing is also important, where you sort of give a single variable name and a single variable format, right? You might have a customer ID called different things in different systems, and it might have leading zeros here and not there, might be uppercase and lowercase. So you have to sort of deal with these details, right? We build out that strong data foundation. And then in the middle, that's where you can transform and enrich it into an actual unified view of the customer. So you take all this diverse data, all these different sets of data, create that single unified view. And then on the right-hand side, we can help you get that data back out to all the tools you use to understand and analyze your customer, to market to them, to personalize their experience. So for example, an action taken on the website can be used to personalize a call to the call center, or an interaction in a bank's branch can be used to drop someone into an ad campaign or trigger an email. And that's a very difficult technical process if you don't have that sort of framework built out already. The other thing I would briefly mention here are those two locks. We'll get to that in a moment. But sort of having this foundation in place, being able to distribute data client side and server side, that's a way that we can get sort of around the difficulties with third-party cookies. And just having this framework in place in general, it's going to allow you to switch out different vendors, when one isn't doing it for you anymore, or when, for example, Google tells you have to upgrade to the newest version of Google Analytics. Moving on, though, a similar view, but with privacy as sort of the main focus here. So same concept, collecting data on the left-hand side, turning it into the view of the customer on the right-hand side, and distributing it in the middle and distributing it out on the right-hand side. But now from the point of view of privacy, how can you have this set up to support not just GDPR in Europe or CCPA in America, but all of the different privacy rules, which are they're not the same depending on the region that your business is located in or the region that your customers are located in. So the approach that we like to take is going to occur at several steps during this process. So first of all, that left-hand lock, that represents the first stage of consent management. And if data is streaming in from different sources, pre-consented, that's great. But if it's not, you should be able to identify people and understand what their consent preference is. And for people who say, do not collect my data, that shouldn't even make it into the central location in the first place. And if people say, you can collect my data, that's great, it'll pass through. And some people might say, you can collect my data for analytics, but you cannot collect it for social media, as an example, right? Then the lock in the middle, that represents for those people who've agreed to let us collect their data on the business's behalf. Once the data is in there, you might need to be able to provide that back to the customer when they request to know what you know about them. When they give that DSAW request to the business, you have to have that data available in a way to give it back to the customer and comply with those privacy laws. And then on the right-hand side, for those customers that have given sort of conditional consent and said yes to one channel but no to another, you have to be able to track that and then know, for example, that we have to shut that person down in social media because they said that they're not allowing you to track them for that purpose. So there's a lot of different areas within the customer data supply chain where you have to be able to have that consent tracked and have that ability to govern that data and to do the right thing with your customers' data. And having that platform in place, it will allow you to do that now, and it'll allow you to be able to do that as you change your MarTech stack because you have that consent management flow already in place. So this is another big trend. It's the move to server-side tracking. So Tealium has a tag management system. We also have an API hub, and there's been a big trend in the last couple of years, especially on the publisher and advertising side, as those vendors, those partners of ours have opened up APIs to take the place of tags. So the tags previously were able to use third-party cookies and track that you viewed a banner on their website or their publishing platform, and then eventually went back to the advertiser's website and converted. You didn't have to click on the banner. Those third-party cookies could track you, but now they can't because they're getting blocked. They're still allowed in Chrome, but all the other major browsers have blocked them, and they will get blocked in Chrome pretty soon. So the publishers are moving to use hashed PII, hashed email addresses and phone numbers and mailing addresses and things like that, and an API. And this is the move right now, but there are many publishers who have not opened up APIs like that yet, so they're still using tags. And there are many other types of vendors who will still need to use tags going forward, right? Any vendor that's going to change the look and feel of the website or the app, they're going to load a chat window, they're going to serve a banner ad, they're going to do a product recommendation or anything like that, they're going to need some sort of code in the website. So there probably will not be many advertisers, many businesses who can go entirely server side for a while. It's going to be this hybrid approach. And you're going to have to be able to still serve tags and then sort of migrate those integrations over to API as those vendors make those APIs available. This is a conversation I have all the time. The IT staff comes to me and says, I want to take every tag off the website. In an ideal world, we could do that, but in most situations, that is just not the case yet. So this is a high-level view of how this hybrid approach can work. In this case, the customer comes to the website. The website can fire a pixel, it can fire a tag, and we can send that directly to the third-party vendor. Or we can stream that web event to a server and then send that by API. At the same time, if that customer has an offline event, they go to a store, they go to a bank branch, they attend an event, a CRM record is updated, a point of sale system record is updated, we can work with that as well. And we can use those events and send those directly server side too. So, this is sort of the move that a lot of businesses are making to improve their marketing ability in general. A couple other options here that are worth mentioning. First is, again, emphasis on consent management. We want to be able to use consent management and do that the right way. And the other part is potentially using first-party domains, using CNAMEs, using A records. Those are not against any rules. Certain browsers they work better with, and other browsers not as much. But you want to be able to be as solid as you can be, and to collect as much data as possible. So it's another alternative that we've been speaking to many customers about. Here are just some examples of high-level use cases. These are things that customers come to me, prospects come to me and ask me, can a CDP support personalization? Can a CDP support identity resolution? And I say, absolutely. These are, generally they're core features of every CDP, but each one is going to do them differently. So depending on your business needs, you should really be much more specific about exactly what you're trying to do, and then you'll know whether one CDP does that better for you as opposed to, in general, right? So when I think about personalization, I think about cross-channel personalization. So this is not just on the website. This is when they call the call center. This is when they go in person to the store or the bank branch. This is via email. So you want to be able to personalize in every channel. And you want to do that in a way where you're complying with privacy laws. Another one is just sort of optimizing ad spend, reaching the right person at the right time with the right message. Yes, some CDPs can do it better than others, but that's absolutely a feature that you should be looking into. Then we get into some more advanced requests, right? Predictive scoring and models. Does the CDP support that internally? Does the CDP integrate seamlessly with another tool that might do that for you? Those are things that you're going to have to look into. How does the CDP support analytics? And how does the CDP unify online and offline data? So these are all great high-level requests that I get from the customer, but I always like to dig, like I said, a lot deeper into the details of exactly what they're going to do. So here's an example of how I like to visualize a specific use case. So this is really, how do I identify two different types of customers, right? I want to identify old customers that haven't interacted in a while. Maybe we'll consider those lapsed. Or maybe at-risk customers. And then how do I identify a brand new customer, someone that's just bought something today, right? So we're going to collect data from the website, from the app, from the point of sale system or the CRM system. So that way we know both their historical records from that CRM system, and we know that someone's a buyer regardless of where they buy it, whether they buy it on the app or in person or on the website. We're going to know that they're a buyer. And then we're going to be able to build out these profiles, and each person should be able to be identified in real time based on this data as it's flowing through the system. So that's in the middle, right? We have two different groups of customers in this particular case, but we can then, once we have these building blocks, we can do all these other use cases with the same data. And then finally, on the right-hand side, you see, how are we going to activate this? And in the case of the lapsed customer, those are the two little branches up top, right? Someone's lapsed, we want to get their attention. So we're going to send them some ads on social media. At the same time, we'll probably pass that segment back to our analytics vendor for analysis. But on the other hand, if someone has just bought something, they're a brand new customer, we're also going to send that to a variety of tools. In this case, we're going to turn advertising off, but we're also going to update CRM records and point of sale records. And then maybe we're going to also personalize the website to say, thank you for being a new customer. So we can take all this data and have two very different ways that we're going to activate the data in real time based on each person's personality, each person's attributes. Right? So this is the level of detail that I would recommend everyone gets into. Try and figure out a couple of use cases that you're going to think have the most impact on your business, and execute on those use cases when you're first setting up the CDP so you can prove success, and then you can move on to additional use cases after that. I'd like to pass it on now.
Yeah, cool. So we'll have a quick poll here. So we would like to understand, have you started investing in your MarTech for building a robust first-party infrastructure? So, and the options are, you already have a robust infrastructure in place. You're actively working on building infrastructure. You have not yet identified the areas, or you haven't even started thinking about this area. So we'll wait for 30 seconds. We'll let everybody answer to this question.
Yeah, and for our attendees out there, that should pop up for you. If it doesn't, it's under the polls tab up in the top. But yeah, I see responses coming through already. So far, the winners haven't started yet, so we'll let a few more come in. I think that's So far, we've got 21 responses, and it's a little bit split between B, C, and D. Some are actively working, others haven't started, and because they haven't, but they've identified the areas, but then the other third of them haven't started and don't know where to start.
Got it. Great. So moving on to the next set of platforms or solutions that you should be considering in 2023. Once you have identified your first party data, you have organized all of it. The next thing that you want to understand is how do I enrich this data, or how do I use this data to reach out to my target audiences in the ad network? So the solution that is getting developed by multiple vendors is a universal identifier. So universal identifier is going to act as an identifier of people in the ad network. So CDPs use some kind of identifier to identify your first party data or your customers. Universal identifiers are mainly trying to identify them in an ecosystem, in the ad ecosystem. And broadly, if you look at it, so there had been solutions like ID resolution platforms in the past, but universal identifiers are a set of solutions which are getting developed post the announcement of deprecation of third-party cookies, as well as changes in the privacy law. So just to see what are some of the differences in these. So first thing that is different is the identifier that they use for connecting individuals in the ecosystem. So primarily, universal identifiers use email address as the unique or the primary key for identifying people, whereas ID resolution providers or platforms have been using PII, which could be email versus other information, other offline information like address, phone numbers, etc. The second difference between universal identifiers and ID resolution solutions are that universal identifiers are primarily going to work in the digital space, so they are only they will help you identify individuals in the online space, whereas an ID resolution platform helps you identify an individual in both online as well as offline space. So for example, if you want to connect the dots between, or if you want to connect an individual between what are they doing on the offline world with the online world, an ID resolution partner will be the solution that you can look at. The third thing which is different between these two types of solution is who owns the data. So in case of an universal identifier, this data is owned by the company or the ad tech platform who is developing this identifier, and you will not have access to this identifier. Whereas in case of an ID resolution platform, this is something that is based on your first party data, and you in some cases you can get access to this identity graph. The last thing is the type of integration that are possible using this. So generally, both universal identifier as well as ID resolution platforms, they have integrations with major ad tech platforms. So some of the actively being developed universal identity solutions are unified ID 2. Then there is ID 5, which is building something. Whereas ID resolution platforms are platforms like Experian, LiveRamp, which have a lot of first party data or offline data that they have collected, and then they are able to enrich, or they are able to match that with your online data. In addition to these two solutions, a universal identifier as well as ID resolution platform, there are also a lot of other MarTech vendors who are working or who are internally using IDs to solve for measurement challenges. So one of the vendors who is actively working on it is Newstar. So Newstar has an ID, internal Newstar ID, which it uses for connecting data of user across different touch points, and they have a solution which integrates the media mix modeling plus MTA to get a better visibility of what is the contribution of different marketing channels in driving conversion or a business goal. In addition to this, what they also have is they are able to onboard any kind of first party data that you give to them and connect that with or the identifier that they already have. In addition to this, there are also a lot of development happening in a space called data clean room. So data clean room are privacy safe way in which ad platforms are sharing data with the advertisers as well as with other consumers. So for example, Google is working on a solution called Ads Data Hub, where they are making data away from their ad platform available, which can then be connected with your first party data that you have been collecting. In addition to these, some of the other platforms like Lotame or DMP, they are also working on creating identifiers to match users across in their ecosystem. Similarly, Yahoo is working on some solution. LiveRamp has also come up with a different solution called ATS, which is primarily trying to solve for which will act as a universal identifier, which vendors can leverage. Also, Nielsen is building something in this space. Uh, the next area that one of the major area that is going to be impacted by the loss of third-party cookies as well as the digital identifiers is going to be targeting. And there are two types of solutions which are emerging in this space. So one type of solution is where you are looking at a sample of data and trying to understand what is the behavior of the people or the prospect who interact with your brand, and trying to target such kind of individuals. So ComScore has a solution in this space. So ComScore has extensive, has a huge size of digital panel, and they have also integration with multiple other data providers. And what they are able to do is, using this panel data, they are able to understand or identify the behaviors of the typical audiences or the most profitable audiences that you want to reach out to. And then what you are able to do is use these signals and target such audiences on the different ad platforms. The second type of platform or the solution that are coming up is where the provider has a lot of first party data, and what they are trying to do is then use this first party data to give you audiences which you can then activate on different platforms. So True Audience, a solution by TransUnion, is one such platform. So they have a huge amount of data about US population, the credit information about this. And what they let you do is they let you upload your first party data into their platform, and they're able to find lookalike audiences of your customers in their database. And that database they are now able to activate on different platforms. What they're also able to do is help you understand or select what attributes you want to use when building lookalike audiences. So these are a couple of solutions that are coming up to to solve for targeting solutions, which are going to be impacted by the deprecation of third-party cookies. The next area where we recommend marketers should be thinking about is looking at AI/ML platforms. So with the deprecation of third-party cookies, with a lot of privacy laws, a lot of tech changes which are happening, one of the biggest impact that is happening is access to the data which is available for marketers to use for making business decisions. And to overcome these challenges, the use of AI/ML becomes very important. So using AI/ML, you will be able to plug in some of the data gaps that may be occurring because of these restrictions. So having a robust AI/ML platform which is able to help you analyze your data at scale, which is able to support with multiple use cases, becomes very important. So some of the use cases that you can that AI/ML can be used for in case of marketing is one, looking at your historical data and trying to predict what is going to happen, or get into more additional details of what are some of the some of the most profitable segments of customers that you may be having, or what are the trends that you think will happen based on historical data. The other challenge that we have seen with a lot of the AI/ML platforms is that they may be able to help you create solutions, but when it is time to scale, these platforms are not able to scale them. So whenever you are evaluating any AI/ML platform, it is important to also see how easily are they able to scale. To give you a quick example of how marketers can leverage AI/ML, so customers who are using Google Analytics GA360 or the GA paid version, they have the ability to export this data into BigQuery. BigQuery is a cloud-based data warehouse platform which Google provides. And what you are also able to do in this case is ingest any kind of first-party data that you have. So, and within BigQuery, you are now able to connect data from the web analytics along with data from your first party system, CRM system, transaction system. And BigQuery can act as a data warehouse or data lake where you have all this data hosted. Then within BigQuery, you have BigQuery ML functions or machine learning models available, which can then be used for building out different use cases. So one of the scenario could be that you are using all this data to create segments to identify what are the behavior of people who generally convert. And once you identify the people who generally convert, what you are able to do is feed this information back into GA and create audiences within GA, which you can then activate on different Google platforms. So this is like one use case where you can use BigQuery ML to scale some kind of an AI/ML use case within your organization. The next area where we think marketers should be investing is on experience analytics. With targeting becoming difficult, it becomes even more important to make sure that you are able to maximize the value of customers or prospects who are coming to your properties. So the it is very important to understand or maximize the value of these audiences. So typically what customers have been doing is they use web analytics for measuring or understanding what is happening. But one of the biggest gap is in web analytics is it tells you what is happening, but it doesn't answer the question why is certain thing happening. So that is where experience analytics platforms become very important. The objective of an experience analytics platform is to answer the question of why certain things are happening. And few of the platforms that you can look at, or some of the use cases that you can look at, are one is looking at platforms which help you build heat maps. So using that, you are able to see that what are the places or what are the elements on the page where people are spending a lot of time, or where are the places where people are interacting a lot. uh, Platforms which help you do some kind of session recording. So based on this, you are able to figure out what are some of the friction points or what are some of the challenges that people face when they're interacting with your website or with your content. Look at platforms that help you build journey maps. So you are able to then see that what are some of the roadblocks that people face when they are not able to meet the ideal journey that you want them to take. Similarly, look at other platforms that give you more insights into the behavior of people on your website. And some of the platforms that you can consider for this are Hotjar, Crazy Egg, Impulse. These are some of the popular platforms that can be considered for understanding why certain things are happening on your website. The next area that we would like you to focus on in 2023 is looking at creative analytics. So based on a survey by Nielsen, uh, creative quality determines 75% of the ad impact. And this is one of the area that we see very less amount of focus being given. So majorly when people are talking about or optimizing their campaigns, they are focusing on placements, they're focusing on bidding, but they're not looking at how is their creative impacting the ad performance. So there are platforms which are leveraging AI ML to figure out that what in a creative is driving performance. So platforms like AdStake, DataSign, what they do is they take input of the creatives that you are using. They also take inputs of the performance these campaigns are driving, and they have their algorithms which is then able to break down the creative and the performance and figure out what elements in your creatives are driving performance. So based on that, what you are able to do is experiment different type of creative, experiment changing elements in the creative to drive better performance. So this is another area that we will recommend that you should be focusing on when you are considering building a tech stack for 2023. At this point, we'll have a quick poll. So just want to understand what are the other solutions that you have started looking at to augment your first party data. So we'll wait for 30 seconds for everyone to respond.
And same thing there. That should pop out for everybody, but if it doesn't, you're going to find that under the polls, under the open. So give that a few seconds and those will start coming in. So far, the winner is have explored a few solutions but haven't tested any. So that's your winner. Second is no, they haven't explored any.
Got it. So moving on to the research that Vishal and team has done. So Vishal, back to you.
Thanks, Shobik. So yeah, so what we did was we did a assessment of the MarTech stack in the financial services industry in the US, and these are some of the insights that we were able to gather. Um, so the way we went about it, it was a completely outside-in approach. So websites will add the tags of a lot of the different platforms that they're using. So we identified around 64 large and mid-sized financial firms, looked at their websites and the tags on the website. We were able to identify 200 plus platforms across those four different categories of data management, activation, experience, and analytics. And we were able to create subcategories, around 40 plus subcategories. So again, this was a completely outside in approach. We haven't interacted with any of these firms. It's primarily based on the tags, but this will help you give a sense of what are the kind of platforms that are being used by all of these different players. So this will give you a little bit of a head start. Right? Um, so this is the same framework that we discussed earlier: data management, activation, experience, and measurement. On the data management side, we'll start with the CDP. Right. So what we saw was almost half of the firms are using some CDP, and Telium is the most prominent CDP being used. Of all the people that are using a CDP, 50% of them are using Telium. When it comes to consent management, outside of the CDP, we see only one third of the firms are using an external consent management platform, and Ensighten and OneTrust are the ones that are most widely used. And then there are a couple of ID solutions which come out to be the most prominent: LiveRamp and Tapit. Tapit is now acquired by Experian. Right? We also saw a lot of people, a lot of websites had drawbridge tags. So drawbridge is acquired by LinkedIn a few years ago, and this is part of LinkedIn Marketing Solutions right now, which is also widely used. Moving to the next category around activation, where we look at DMPs, DSPs, and video advertising. Right. So when it comes to DMPs, in financial services industry, we saw Adobe Audience Manager as being the most widely used DMP, with almost half of the advertisers using it. Some of the other ones that we also saw were popular were Newstar, Aggregate Knowledge, Oracle Bluekai, and Salesforce Crux. When it comes to DSPs, again, Adobe is dominating over here as well with Adobe Advertising Cloud, along with Trade Desk and DV360. The second tier of DSPs we saw is Verizon Media, Amobi, Rocket Fuel, and Amazon. With video and TV advertising and online TV advertising becoming a lot more popular, people, advertisers investing a lot of money in here. We're seeing some specialized video advertising platforms such as Xandr, Freewill, and SpotX, which are allowing advertisers to access a lot of this premium inventory, video inventory across TV, OTT, CTV, and mobile, right? So Xandr, SpotX, Freewill, and as you can see, all of these firms have been acquired by larger companies. And this is a trend that we're seeing in the entire MarTech space. Like a lot of these large firms, acquiring a lot of these, new and upcoming technology platforms. So we've been hearing, a lot from our clients around, the match rates have been going down because of all the different privacy changes that are kicking in, right? So what we want to understand from you is if you're using a DMP, if you started seeing a drop in match rates, right? So either you might not be using a DMP, and if you are you seeing a significant drop or a minor drop or no drop at all?
Again, we'll give people a couple of seconds to fill in there, but so far we've got about 2/3 of them. Oh, it just changed. A little over half saying they're not using a DMP, and 25% are saying yes, they've seen a significant drop.
Okay. So yeah, so this is aligned with what we're seeing across our clients, and and this is one use case for you to consider a CDP, right? With these sort of challenges that we'll come across with DMPs. The next section is around experience, right? And we look at a few different platforms over here. The first category is observability platforms. So these are the kind of platforms which help you with application monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, digital experience. And this relationship will typically be owned by the IT departments. But this has a lot of different business use cases as well. And that is why it is part of the MarTech stack. And over here, New Relic, App Dynamics, and Dynatrace. These are the three platforms which are dominating this space. Also, when it comes to experience management, we see Qualtrics as being the most popular one, used by almost 1/4 of the advertiser. It has a lot of different solutions within experience management and even outside of that. Shobik spoke about experience analytics. So what we saw was, Hotjar was the clear winner. It's the most used experience analytics platform. And then we also have Full Story, Crazy Egg, and Content Square also being used. So we had Clicktail, which is now part of Content Square. Um, and then finally moving to measurement, when I look at web analytics, right? So what we saw was 80% of the advertisers are using Google Analytics. And out of these, less than half have transitioned to GA4. So over the next year or two, everyone will have to transition to GA4. And 44% of the advertisers are using Adobe Analytics. So we do see a good overlap between the two. Like a lot of advertisers are using both Google Analytics as well as Adobe Analytics. And then we also see a good number of advertisers using platforms like Heap Analytics, right? Now TV and video advertising, gaining more popularity, brands investing a lot of money in that. There is a TV analytics platform which is iSpot TV, which has become popular. Over one third of advertisers with TV advertising are using this, which is helping them provide insights into the impact of their investments in TV and video advertising. Right? So these were, some of the insights. Again, we have done an in-depth analysis across 40 different categories. These were only a few categories across these, 4 areas that we wanted to highlight over here. Um, so now, we spoke about, all the changes that are happening in the industry. We provided, some few recommendations on platforms that you should explore. We gave you the assessment of the financial services industry. So now we have to take all that and figure out, how to build your own MarTech stack or how to enhance your MarTech stack. How would you go about it, right? So these are a few pointers that will help you get started on it. The first thing is you really need to collaborate across teams, right? You cannot operate in silos. So you need to come together, data teams, product teams, tech teams, marketing teams, and really have this cross-functional team which will be working on this initiative, right? Again, MarTech stack, there could be a lot of different use cases, right? You will not be able to solve for everything at once. So you need to figure out, okay, what are some of the key business priorities? What are some of the challenges that you want to solve upfront, right? So that understanding is very important. Then you conduct, a MarTech assessment with those key business priorities in mind, right? Which will help you identify, what are some of the gaps in your MarTech stack compared to the industry that you need to fill in, right? Then you build, strategy, starting right from data management, strategy, first party data strategy, activation strategy, measurement strategy, right? So you need to build that strategy and then, the roadmap. You need to then identify the investments, right? Some of these platforms can be expensive, and implementation will require a lot of tech resources. So it is going to be a significant investment. So really need to figure out the investments across all of these different areas and how are you going to put those investments over a period of time, and then you move into execution, right? So this is a simple process that you can follow to get started on building or enhancing your MarTech stack, right? So what we can help with is, if you want to do a quick assessment of your MarTech stack and how it compares with the industry, we can do a complimentary MarTech assessment. If you're interested in this, you can shoot us an email at this email address, and we can turn this around within a few days. So yeah, so that's it with the insights that we wanted to share with the group today. We'll open it up for Q&A now. Heather, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for sharing that. So we do have some questions. So let's see. Is it required to have a consent management platform?
I would say it really depends on your location, sort of the importance of a consent management platform. But no, it's not required to have a consent management platform. What's required is that you obey the local laws based on where your business and your customers are.
All right. So, I mean, with all the changes that are going, one of the questions that we have is, are DMPs going to be effective in the future?
So if I may answer that. So what we have seen working with multiple clients is that effectiveness or the match rates that we see within DMP platforms have been coming down. So the type of returns that was possible or we were seeing earlier is not we don't see it anymore. So looks like DMPs may not be as effective as they were in the past. But there is a lot of development being happening in the DMP ecosystem as well. But we'll recommend to wait and watch, but also have some kind of alternate plans in place.
Yeah, I would say if you were going to invest in a DMP, just make sure that they are not relying on third-party cookies going forward and that they're using other ways to target people.
And is it essential to have a CDP for managing first-party data, or is there another way to do it?
Well, I think, when it comes to a lot of this MarTech software, you could always build everything on your own. The question is, do you have the talent in-house, and do you have the time to wait for it? So when I first started selling CDPs a long time ago at this point, a lot of places would say, well, we don't need that. We already have one of those. And what in fact they usually had was some sort of data lake or data warehouse with a lot of their customers' data in there. But then you have to have an IT person to query it. You have to have an IT person to build an integration out to your email platform and then to your CRM, and then the email changes their API and they have to maintain that, and then you work with a new tool. So that's really what it's about. Is it's just not as scalable and as agile if you're going to do this in-house with your own set of data. What the CDP gives you is the ability for less technical people to understand what the data looks like and to build out segments and to activate it and to not have to rely on IT and to sort of put yourself into a queue and wait 30, 60, 90 days for your request to get fulfilled by someone else.
Yeah, so definitely pros and cons, right? And we're talking about that same thing, internally here at SEJ. So, I think that you've touched on, kind of what are your thoughts? So another question that we had are, what are your thoughts on building it from the ground up? So I think you've kind of touched on that, Josh. So let's take this a step further. And, if they don't have a CDP, what's a good way to get started?
I think there are several out there that have strengths and weaknesses. I think there's a CDP Institute, which is more of an impartial third party where they have information on all of them. Of course, I'm partial to Telium's. I've been selling it and supporting it since they created it 8 or 10 years ago. But I would just say, I think what I was saying before is figure out what you want to do with it. Figure out specifically the actions you want to take and the people that will be using it, and then work from that to make a decision about the CDP that's going to be best for you.
And is that something that, so when you look at, starting from scratch with this, is it something that, is just the marketing department, or is it something that, you should bring other departments into as well?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of groups within the marketing department, right? You have people who might be sending emails and serving advertising and maybe doing some personalization on the website. But then I also work with the analytics team, which isn't necessarily in the marketing department. And then maybe like sometimes it's called the CRM team, dealing with existing customers. You have data science team, and then you sort of have the IT team that without buying a CDP would sort of fulfill that connection there. So there's a lot of groups to bring into this conversation, and generally one of these groups will be the one who reaches out with this need and this pain that they need to sort of figure out how to fix. But the successful implementations that I've worked with have ended up bringing all those other groups into the conversation, involving them all as stakeholders, because how do you define a VIP customer, right? Each of those groups is going to have a different definition of a VIP customer. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm saying that it should be a conscious decision if they choose to have a different definition of VIP for email versus VIP for advertising. But make that a conscious decision and get all those people together and have that talk. And if that's the case, that's fine. Or if they choose to have that one single definition of VIP customer, have them all contribute and make that decision. And you're never going to be able to do that unless you get them all in the room together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anytime you're putting together some big data systems, like that's what you're looking for, right? Is a collective group. So I think we might have time for one other one. So given Google, has delayed the deprecation of third-party cookies, do we need to prioritize the MarTech assessment?
I mean, I would. Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
Josh, please go ahead.
I would say absolutely, because everyone is going to rely, including GA4, on this PII to track across domains going forward. And you need to start building out that first-party foundation now so you have access to it when they flip that switch and the third-party cookie is gone. So you should absolutely start thinking about doing that today.
Yeah, and to add to what Josh is saying, so we already are seeing this change happening. So maybe Google has not done it, but platforms like Apple, Firefox, they have already started doing it. As well as there are privacy laws which are changing. So it definitely makes sense to start looking at the MarTech stack and prioritizing and working on it.
And so maybe time for one more. So Michael asks, do you have specific input for B2B? And so, if it's a B2B, client, like, do you have, different advice for them than you would give a B2C vendor?
I mean, I think it goes back to what I said a minute ago, right? Think about the tactics that you want to perform and make sure that the tools that you choose are suitable for those tactics. When you're dealing with B2B and a focus on account-based marketing, I see a lot of use of marketing automation for email, a lot of use of CRM systems, a lot of use of third-party data providers to identify people and what company they work for and what industry they work in. So the tool set I've seen is a little different from a B2B business versus a B2C or a B2B2C. And that's because they have different tactics that they want to enact.
Perfect. Let's see. I think that's it. I think that's all that we have time for, and that's all the questions that we've been able to get through. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here with us and for sharing, all of this information. I personally love MarTech, and like the cool tools I can get my hands on, just very exciting from my perspective. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. So before we let you all go, tell the people where to find you. You want to start, Vishal?
Yep. So you can reach me at vishal.m@iquanti.com.
You can reach me at shopbig.r@iquanti.com.
And josh.wolf@telium.com.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you, everybody who joined us today. And we'll see you on the next SEJ webinar. Have a great day, everyone, or evening, wherever you're located. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.